Hello and greetings. I'm certainly not known for doing reviews on computers or laptops, but let me give you a brief little bio on that. I used to be the #1 person in the world for answering tech support questions about the MacBook Air. I've owned every iteration of the MacBook Air, including the original 11-inch. I wished Apple still made an 11-inch MacBook Air. However, everybody wants a larger screen, but for ultimate portability, it was one hell of a cute laptop. This is my old 13-inch MacBook Air. See, I've got a few stickers on there. I've carried this thing everywhere. You're not actually going to come across anybody that's owned or used more laptops than I have, except for a handful of people on YouTube that literally buy every PC laptop that's out there, including every MacBook. Used to repair Apple notebooks and HP notebooks. Of course, Apple does not like to call their notebooks laptops because they're not meant for sitting on your lap. That's something you can actually look up on Google. There's still a few articles on Apple on how to take care of your MacBook Pro and your MacBook Air in discussion.apple.com, also called Methodology to Protect Your Data, an article that I wrote for Apple that you can do a Google search on and it will immediately pop up. This is a new 2018 MacBook Air. Other than cameras and lenses, I consider myself to be a hardcore nut when it comes to laptops and notebooks. I mean, I can think of no single device that I can be more productive with and that I use more often, well, other than my desktop unit in the back room back there, than a notebook computer. You can literally just about conquer the world with a notebook. Is there anything you really can't do with a notebook? So anyway, this is my review on the new 2018 MacBook Air. I bought it on the first day it was available. I sold off an old 300mm 2.8 Nikkor lens, an old manual focus, to buy this beast. Base intro on this model is $1,200. It's available in silver, space gray, which this color is, or rose gold. Actually, Apple calls it gold, but it's not gold. It's more pink than gold, but technically it's rose gold. The new display is a 13.3-inch Retina display with 2560 by 1600 LED. The nit count is only 300 on this. Actually, that's the only one nitpick, haha, nitpick nits, that I actually have about the new MacBook Air. But that's a feature to give it the longest possible battery life, which is actually extremely good. Apple rates it at 12 hours, but in realistic usage, it averages about 9 hours. I've done a lot of testing on the new MacBook Air, and like I said, I was #1 person in the world for more than a few years for tech support questions on the MacBook Air. I've had more than a few Airs apart. By the way, I saw the new iFixit teardown of the new 2018 MacBook Air. A finer piece of precision jewelry I've never seen, with 13 main assemblies, including sub-assemblies on the new MacBook Air. So 13 main parts. Speakers, by the way, are a lot better on the new MacBook 2018 Air than are on my 2015 MacBook Pro 15-inch Retina display or any other prior version of MacBook Air, of which I've owned all of them. You notice, too, let me actually hold these two up side by side. I notice people do reviews, they'll like lay them on top of each other and they'll start scratching them together. You notice how much smaller this 13-inch is than this 13-inch? It's about 17% smaller, even though they're both 13-inch. Also, too, the trackpad on this new 2018 is 20% larger. The way they were actually able to get it smaller is by bringing the display, in this case it's a Retina display, all the way out much further towards the edge. So the bezel is a lot smaller in the new 2018. The new 2018 is actually much closer to the old 11-inch MacBook Air than it is to the prior version of 13-inch MacBook Air. The old Air, people complain, well, this new Air is $1,200. The old MacBook Air was $1,000 base price, but the old Air at $1,000 base price did not have a Retina display. Interestingly enough, everybody that's reviewed the new Air, and I'll tell you this since you obviously can't reach into this video and feel it, the new Air fit and finish, even though the old Air, as well as every other MacBook Pro, either 2017 or 2015, was a very fine piece of precision aluminum chassis on the MacBooks. The new Air fit and finish and precision is actually, I didn't think it was possible, since the old Pro and Air were extremely exacting, is really much more exacting. Actually, I could call it close to near perfection. I'm actually surprised. They actually took the very sharp edge, not very sharp edge, but the slight sharp edge off the base of the bottom chassis that people were complaining about, where they'd actually rest their wrists on the keyboard, and they actually took that edge off. But the fit and finish and precision on the new 2018 Air is actually exquisite. It's also, I forget, was it nearly 1 millimeter thinner at the base? Of course, it's so thin, tapered towards the edge, it's not any thinner here. But the overall footprint in length and width is about 17% smaller, even though it's the same 13-inch display. Like I said, 12-hour battery life is not realistic. It's really about 9. However, it's considerably better than the old Air, which was excellent. 7-watt CPU, so you got less power drain. I'll actually talk about that in a second. That's the only other very minor nitpick on the new 2018 Air. It's a 1.6 gigahertz dual processor, 8th generation. It is a Y Intel Core i5 processor, and I'll also talk about that in a second. It also has a really large haptic force touch trackpad. So they got away with, they did away with the old springboard trackpad on the new MacBook Air, so it's 20% larger than the prior generation. The speakers and output on it are actually killer. Like I said, better than any other MacBook Pro or all versions of prior Airs, which I have owned. Base configuration is 8 gig RAM and 128 gig solid state drive. You can up it to 16 gig RAM and I think 1.5 terabyte. I got a 16 gig RAM and 256 solid state drive configurable on the Air, which of course is going to cost more than the base model. You actually have Touch ID and Fingerprint ID. The ports on the new Air has been castrated. A lot of people have actually complained about that ever since the 2017 and 2016 generation of MacBook Pro. You have 2 USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 ports, and you have a headphone jack. So those are the 3 ports you actually have. So you have a headphone jack and 2 USB-C ports on the new MacBook Air. So you do have nice Touch ID for security. I don't have anybody else in my house. I'm not really worried about anybody stealing my laptop, but I mean, the laptop Air is quintessentially a traveling person's notebook. So with the Touch ID and the new T2 sensor and the new MacBook Air, the security on the new Apple is exquisite. It said 17% volume due to decreased bezel. As I also said, far better fit and finish than even all prior versions of MacBook Air, and also too, 2016, 2015, and 2017 MacBook Pros, even better. I'm surprised that they were actually able to do that. It was already near perfection to begin with. I mean, people buy Macs for many reasons. One thing is the durability and the attention to detail and precision of build quality. I would consider it useful. I actually have current Lightroom Creative One, Photoshop, and Lightroom Classic on here, and consider it for moderate photo editing. I'm not a video editor, but I mean, all indications and reports are that it is not an ideal machine for video editing. No MacBook Air is, and unless it's a top spec, very expensive MacBook Pro with upgrade on a graphics card. I mean, MacBook Air is certainly not for video editing. I'd actually like to refer you to a laptop.com link in the link below of this video, so you can actually look at all the Geekbench scores. One thing that's actually surprisingly, and it absolutely blasts the hell out of everything else, except for some of the top-end MacBook Pros, is the hard drive, or specifically it's a solid-state drive. Solid-state drive speeds on the new 2018 MacBook Air, 2,066 megabits per second. The competition that everybody compares this to is the Dell XPS 13. You know, crummy little plastic junk box. The solid-state drive speed on that machine is 508. On the new MacBook Air, and I noticed that too when actually hooking up and transferring this files between my SanDisk solid-state drives and my new 2018 MacBook Air, 2,066 versus the Dell XPS 13, which is 508. Everything else, like the other comparable notebook is the that people want to compare the new Air to is the HP Spectre 13. That's 340 megabits per second. The Huawei MateBook 282. The average, if you actually take the 5 comparable Ultrabooks, including the new Air, the average is $479. The new MacBook Air, and trust me, that's actually the one thing that surprised me. And then I looked up the scores on the solid-state drive transfer speed. The new MacBook Air is 2,066. I thought to myself when I was transferring some rather large, huge PDF portfolio files to my Air, I'm like, oh my God. I thought, normally I'm used to solid-state drive speeds by now. I thought, oh my God, something must have happened. I was transferring a 28 gig collection of PDFs. Yeah, I got a lot of PDFs. And then I turned around for a few seconds. I was like, something must have happened. Maybe the solid-state drive, my SanDisk external 500 gig drive must have inadvertently ejected. It's like, no, it's just done transferring. I couldn't believe how fast the new Air is. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. You can take a look at that for yourself on the link below from Laptop Mag. Let's go over some of the positives and negatives. Let's first start off by the negatives. The nit rating, or the brightness. This is the one thing that I can pick on the new 2018 MacBook Air about, is that the nit rating, display brightness, is not high enough for average outdoor use. The new Air is thinner than the old Air. It's a lightweight little powerhouse, but to save on the illumination on the display, and it is a Retina display, by the way, the nit rating is not bright enough. In other words, in the max setting, the one thing that everybody's kind of complained about is that you're not going to be sitting out in your lawn chair, outdoors, and be able to crank the brightness up high enough on the new MacBook Air. So that's the only complaint that I can concur with and agree with others on the new MacBook Air. Also, too, the new is a dual-core machine, the new Air 2018. It's a dual-core Y series, but the Y series is a power miser, so it's not the best choice for video editing. But I mean, I've been using processing GFX 50R, which is medium format files with both Capture One Professional, and I also have the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite installed in a new Air, and everything runs perfectly fine. Like I said, I've got 16 gig and 256 on the solid-state drive on this machine, but I've also tested that with the 8 gig. I had used the 8 gig before returning it because they didn't have 16 gig at the time. I had the 8 gig 128 solid-state drive, and I installed the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite on it until they got the 16 gig in, which was 3 days later, which is what this machine is. Let's go to the positives. Absolutely 100%, undeniably the best fit and finish laptop that exists out there currently. Also the toughest. The only way you're going to get a tougher laptop is if you buy one of the Panasonic or Dell Toughbooks. Those things are enormous, and they average about $3,500, so making comparison to those is not very viable. If you're an Apple hater, that's your problem. I'm actually reviewing this laptop based on the fact that I've owned a lot of different Mac machines. I currently own 7 Macs. I've said #1 person in the world for tech support on the MacBook Air. I actually had to know a lot about the MacBook Air. Am I a little bit rusty on the Air? Not really. Been waiting for the new Air upgrade. One thing everybody was waiting for in the latest Air iteration upgrade was, of course, a Retina display and 8 gig base on the RAM, which is exactly what has happened. People say, oh my God, the new Air is $200 more than the old Air base model. Yeah, but it's a Retina display, for God's sakes. And what the hell do you want? You take into account inflation and the fact that it has a Retina display, of course it's $200 more. So those stupid, insane, ignorant, knuckle-dragging, moronic comments that I keep seeing said by people, they're stupid. I mean, they lack perspective. Compared to what? Compared to what is why I say. Positives on the Air also is that the new Air solid-state drive burns rubber by miles and miles around the competition, way, way, way faster than all its competition, including the Dell XPS 13 and the Spectre 13, the HP Spectre 13. Also, too, you have a lot of eye relief with the Retina display for wide field of viewing angles that you did not have on the old Air. T2 security and fingerprint touch ID for security. A lot of people want that for a traveling notebook, so you can't get into your, other people can't get into your files. Third generation butterfly keyboard, which also has an underlying silicone membrane to keep out dirt and grime. It is true great all-day power. It's one of the main reasons why I always love the Air. It was small, portable, it was very powerful. It's not like people look at the Air. Back when the Air came out, people thought, "Oh, that's just like an internet book." You know, there's no way that thing could have any power. It's like, "Oh, yes, it can. Oh, yes, it can." The MacBook Air was not this current version, but when it came out, it revolutionized. People really stood up and their eyeballs opened on the Air. It's been an absolute favorite for countless numbers of millions of people. The new Air is smaller in volume than the 13% Air is in size, due to the fact that they've reduced the bezel. The trackpad on the new Air is 20% larger with haptic feedback. There's no longer a springboard a trackpad on the Air like there was on the old Air. The speakers are blasting terrific. They just flat out are. And I'm a person that loves to blast the music loud. Trust me, I do. I said the iFixit teardown showed that the inside of it was amazing. I've seen the inside of a lot of laptops, including a lot of MacBooks. So the simplicity and the elegance is just pure jewelry inside. They've also changed the ease of battery pack replacement, but since I greatly trained myself on how to properly take care of lithium batteries, I've never had that issue in any of my MacBooks for the past 12 plus years. There's some things that people need to learn about how to take care of lithium batteries, like you don't drain them low, you don't squeeze them tight and fast while they're off of wall power. Like someone's going to game on their laptop, and I'm not a gamer at all, but if you're going to game on your laptop, it's graphics intensive, it very quickly drains the battery. That's a lithium-ion battery pack killer. Is there an issue with USB-C? When it came out 3 years ago, essentially came out on the new MacBooks. I mean, everybody was bitching, complaining, so was I. The three main dongles to have, everybody talks about dongle gate, and I was also one to laugh at and talk about dongle gate back in the times. Like, what the hell was Mac thinking? They neutered all the ports off their computers. Their notebooks specifically, the Air and the Pro. Well, the Air now. I mean, you really only need three. I mean, you don't even need the Ethernet to USB-C connector, but definitely an SD to USB-C connector, and also a USB to USB-C connector for your older USB peripherals and hard drives. Everything I use now is 500 gig solid-state drives with USB-C connectors on them, so I don't need them for my external solid-state drives. I've always running around with a terabyte of solid-state drive storage between two different solid-state drives. They are $109 SanDisk solid-state drives. Yeah, 2060 by 1600, 4 million pixels. Also, too, I want to do the rating. It's 93% over the latest MacBook Pro on sRGB color gamut. And on Adobe RGB, I think it's 86% of the latest and greatest MacBook Pro. I can't see anybody being unhappy with this unit. If you think it's expensive, you know, then you're an Apple hater. You are. It's like, well, it's more expensive. I got a video after this I'm actually going to nail. I'm going to crucify a lot of stuff that I keep hearing all the time. Because I never liked Steve Jobs, and I kind of don't like some of the things that Apple Incorporated does, but you know, to say that an Apple computer is expensive, or it's this, or it's that, it turns out to be nonsense. But this is not about that. This is about reviewing the new Air 2018. Incredibly happy. I actually give it a 95% out of 100. The only thing that could have been better is that the brightness could have been brighter so that you could use it outdoors without maxing it out. Other than slightly, because everything else, like on the Power Miser Y-Series Intel dual-core CPUs, I mean, and it does have a moving fan in it, by the way. The new 2018 MacBook Air does have a moving fan. But everything else is for power considerations, so you get the most power out of it as possible. But I mean, you have a Retina display, a huge, and I love the fact that this thing is much closer, like I've already said a couple times, much closer in size to the old 11-inch MacBook Air, which was divinely small, and this is divinely small. This is a powerhouse. The fit, finish, and precision on it is incredible. I've been so happy with this, I nearly cried a couple times, and that's not an exaggeration, that's true. This is not for video editing, and it is for moderate photo editing, and I have been doing that. Not only that, but with huge, enormous medium format files for my GFX 50S. This is a machine. I love it. Am I in love with a MacBook Air? Yes, I always have been, but I would have been the first person to tear this computer apart if it were, you know, some sort of sloppy failure from Apple. And it's absolutely not. Is it expensive? No, because you can't point me to any other Windows crap box piece of plastic crappery that comes anywhere near as close to this size, this fit, this finish. This huge, everybody knows, even people that hate Apple, knows that Apple crucifies everybody when it comes to a trackpad. Everybody knows it, and Apple does. Got a Retina display with a huge haptic feedback trackpad. It's plenty fast, it's plenty incredible. And for $1,200, yeah, is it too expensive? Absolutely not. It is not. It's like, it sounds like, I just sound like I'm defending myself against all these Apple haters. Hey, it's too expensive. And I go, compared to what? Let me actually show you the graph on the solid state drive. The MacBook Air, the 2018 MacBook, this is a solid state drive transfer speeds. You see in red right here? Way the hell over here. Here's everything else. It's not even half as fast. Let me point this little graph out to you. Here we have the MacBook Air going all the way from yaw to yaw, and here we have every other comparable Ultrabook that everybody tries to compare the Air to. Not even half as fast. I literally, as I said already, shocked the hell out of myself. I was like, oh my God, how did I just transfer that 30 gigabytes of PDF files? Like, boom! Went from my SanDisk solid state drive via USB-C connector to the internal solid state on this. How did that happen? I must have had a solid state drive, a premature eject failure. It's like, no, it's done. It just like, there it is. Surprising. Is this a quad-core computer for video editing? No, it's not, but it's a $1,200 computer, for God's sakes. Someone's going to say, it's not for video. You didn't even pick anything apart. Computer people really are some of the most miserable, I hate to say this, but they are. Computer people are some of the most miserable SOBs you'll ever run into. It's like, well, you know, I can't edit my 10 gigabyte video file. It's like it's a $1,200 computer dual-core processor. It's not made for that. However, you could happily, with no complaints at all, do all the photo editing you want on this. Is really the 13-inch display the largest display you want for photo? I mean, even this is a 21-inch, is kind of small in my estimation for photo editing, this iMac right here. A 27-inch 4K display for photo editing? Yeah, most people kind of want to do that, you know? A laptop is a laptop. Everybody knows the limitations of a laptop compared to a desktop. For $1,200, this is a killer machine. I give it a 95% out of 100. And I stick by that. That is my review. It's not yours. Now tell me how much you hate me or complain about, that's another underpowered Apple's machine. And I go, compared to what? The comparable Dell and HP unit that everybody wants to compare to the Air, they're horrible, crappy little notebooks compared to this. Are they much cheaper? No, they're not. The Dell, the HP, for example, is right at the same price. So, and the fit and finish of both together don't even come within a half a mile of this, much do the solid-state drive data transfer speeds. So, I hope you like this video. If you do, you can always click the link below. Tell me how much you hate me or how much you hate Apple, but with your irrational, I hate Apple. Last video I made on Apple, I got all these irrational responses. I hate Apple. If you're a gamer, by the way, every Apple person will tell you, if you're a gamer, you should buy a Windows machine. Apple notebooks and desktops are made for productivity. People want to get crap done. You want to sit there with your joystick and sit in your underwear and grow a neck beard while you're playing Fortnite or whatever the hell sort of useless, piss time-wasting game that you want to play. You should get a Windows machine. If you're a gamer, shut up and get a Windows machine. Apple computers are for people that want stuff that works and are trying to be productive, you know. Another word for that is get shit done. Thank you so much for watching, and Apple. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do.